Hello, friends. Welcome back. It's been a while. As you can tell, we have a little bit of a rebrand situation happening, and we are going to make a pivot with the podcast. And I wanted to hop in today to talk about that, to share a little bit about where I've been and where we're going to go. Because the podcast is coming back, babes. And I'm so excited. Because what I've realized in this last, really it could be said for the last 5 years, but especially in these last couple years, is that there needs to be a space for me to dive deep with people, to have these really rich and nuanced and complex and bold conversations about what it means to be fully alive. And so when I was sitting with bringing back the podcast, I knew that the current iteration of it had run its course. And for those of you who are new to me, this is actually a very common thing for me. I think this podcast, this is like the fourth iteration of this particular podcast. And if you listen from the start, you'll hear the different segments of it. You'll hear the different evolutions of it. And I love that because what it means is that I am following the thread of aliveness. And when something is no longer true, I don't force it to continue. And that is really just not how the majority of the world works. And that's okay. I am totally okay with that because I am anything but conventional. I live a very unconventional life. And I love these conversations that are real and raw, and they drop us into the real conversations about what it means to be a human on this planet, navigating life and navigating love and navigating connecting to our true spirit and our heart and all the things that really bring us to life. And so when I was sitting with what I wanted to rebrand it as, it came through really clearly that we're here to keep it real, keep it raw, and have these conversations for creating on the edges. Meaning, like, I'm no longer interested in playing in the safe zone. Not that I ever really was, but these last 5 years, there has been a bit of a gravitation towards more safety, which makes sense. We'll probably get into that in a future episode. But what I've noticed through the kind of going inward into those places of safety is that I always get restless, because when I'm in that safe zone, I'm no longer feeling that vital aliveness, because the vital aliveness comes from creating our life on the edges, where we're starting to push those boundaries of who the world told us that we needed to be, maybe who our family or our community or even just our own ideas. And we're starting to challenge that and push those boundaries a little bit and expand into the truer expression of who we are. So I wanted a space where we could have these conversations about creating on the edges, whether that's creating your life or creating your relationships or creating your art. But really living your life in a way where we're not flatlining in that comfort zone. And I also wanted a space where we could talk about the unconventional path of love. Because there's so much conventional advice out there, and I don't know if you've noticed, but if you are an unconventional person, and you probably are if you have been in my field for a while, even if you're new to me, people don't usually get pulled into this vortex if there's not a part of them that is craving the aliveness that comes from walking a more unconventional path. And unconventional love looks like love by your design. It's not the path of love where we are just setting it and forgetting it and we are running on autopilot and the whole game is to like, just find a person, just find a person. I am so not interested in that. It is really boring to me. And I'm more interested in having the conversations of what it takes to have an alive relationship and what it takes to really not only create that into form, but maintain it over time. And how many different iterations of that relationship will be required? How many different transformations of the people involved in those relationships will be required? And, people on a more conventional path, they're not really interested in having an alive relationship. They just want someone. They just don't want to be alone. There's not a lot of intentionality there. And sometimes it gets a little murky because it can appear that there's a bit of intentionality in how they get into the relationship, but once they're in it, it flatlines. Once they're in it, there is no real depth to the connection. And I just cannot co-sign that. I cannot get on board with love and relationships done that way. And so I wanted to have a space where I could talk about that. And then I also wanted a space where we could really dive into what it means and what it looks like to live in the full range of who you came here to be. We get pigeonholed sometimes on these paths that were never really meant for us. And when we're in that track and we are definitely meant for something more, there's a lot of shit that can come up. There's a lot of ways that the soul, that the human will collaborate with each other to wake us up to the knowing that, oh wait, there's a wider range here of who I am. And, that's going to lead us into conversations about our emotions and our emotional world and really reclaiming the full range of your human and, in the emotional sense, but also in the sense of, what really brings you to life. And so many people are living like such a small version of themselves. They won't let themselves really have what it is that they truly, truly, truly desire. And whether they think it's out of range or it's not possible, or they've gone through a series of experiences that has convinced them that it's never going to happen for them. I again call bullshit. I'm not interested in, again, co-signing that type of ideology, because what I know to be true is that if you're here and you're human, you're here to be fully alive. And we don't get to the point of being fully alive by avoiding the conversations that are real and raw. We don't get there by avoiding our authenticity or our vulnerability or the things that bring us to life. And so this is going to be a journey. I have a rough idea of where we're going to go and what the flavor is going to be. I'm definitely going to be bringing some people in for conversations and interviews. People that I really respect, people that I really love, people that naturally embody this energetic of keeping it real and raw. Like they can go to those depths. So I want you to be able to hear those conversations and get an imprint in your system for what it looks like and sounds like when two people come into relationship and they relate from that place of openness. They relate from that place of real, raw vulnerability, creation, expression, joy, expansion, what that actually looks like, so that you have a map in your body. Because if you, like most of us, were born onto a conventional track, you probably don't have a ton of evidence of what an unconventional relationship or an unconventional paradigm of love is going to look like, what these relationships will look like, where we are feeding that creative aliveness, like what a relationship is going to look like and sound like when we're in the full range of who we are. Because so many relationships require us to cut off parts of ourselves in order to belong, in order to be chosen. And then we wonder why people are fucking miserable. We wonder why the divorce rate is astronomical. Well, there's a big cost to really abandoning the authenticity in order to get the relationship. A lot of people are playing, for lack of a better term, they're playing a lot of games to get into a relationship, to have love. But if you play a game to get it, you have to play a game to keep it. And that's exhausting. And I'm not interested in that, because if you are playing that game, if it's about performance and it's about behavior modification and I need to change myself in order to get the guy or in order to get the girl or in order to get the person, you're fucked. You're actually fucked if you want to have a thriving relationship, but also a thriving life, because your whole life will then center around and you will be consumed by maintaining this identity that isn't even true, because it isn't even you. And if you have to make yourself smaller in order to fit the relationship, it's the wrong relationship. Love, when it's true, never, never, never asks you to become smaller. It never asks you to become less. In fact, it will always ask you to become more, to become bigger, to become more of who you actually are, to bring more of your gifts out into the open, to allow yourself to explore and create yourself fully to life. That's what love will ask of you. And again, this is why it's unconventional, because the majority of what you will hear, especially in the mainstream social media, pop psychology world, is this toxic mimicry. It's a distortion of the truth of love. And every body of work that I have created is in service to the truth of love. Everything that I do, whether it's creative work, whether that is working with clients, whether that is in any of my programs, whether that's my songwriting or my writing, my poetry, it's all in service to the truth of love. Every single part. And what we see, like when we start to give ourselves more permission to be in our full range, is that love, when it's true, requires full-blown honesty. We can't be lying to ourselves and expect to have great love. We can't be lying to ourselves and expect to be connected in our relationships. We can't be lying to ourselves and expect to have the life that we've dreamt of, because there's an energetic discord there. And part of this project of bringing the podcast back and having these conversations with y'all is so that you have a map, so that you can stay the course and you can follow the thread of what brings you fully to life. You can create the type of relationships that you actually want to be having, both romantic and platonic. My relational work is not just about romance. In fact, a lot of the time, the women that come to work with me on their relationships, we end up working on all of the relationships in their life. Their relationships with their kids, with their partners, with their family, with their friends, with their colleagues, with their clients. Like, everything in life is a relationship. And if we do not come at life from a relational lens, and again, that's very unconventional to approach life from a relational lens, because the world that we live in, the paradigm that we live in, is completely unrelational. And so to walk this path will mean that you have to go against the grain. You are going to have to be the weird one, the one that people are like, what are they up to? Like, I don't know. It's fucking weird. They want to have a talk about feelings and needs and agreements and clarity. And oh, they feel all of their emotions and nothing is off limit, but they're also like really responsible about those feelings. It's going to fuck people up. You might get a little fucked up too. That's okay. We all get a little fucked up along the way. And we all off-road from time to time. Off-roading is part of the journey, part of the process. And when we bring in this lens of approval for what is, approval for what we are here to create, approval for our full range, approval for what we actually want in love, what we want in our relationships, and we kind of start expanding it beyond the scope of romantic love. Because again, this world is so obsessed with romantic love and really callous when it comes to relationship and love on the entire spectrum here of what it means to be alive and a relational adult. You know, there's not as much value that gets put into friendship or into the family relationships, and the family relationships are wildly codependent and often quite toxic. And so if you're walking an unconventional path in love, it will mean you have to do the hard thing of not participating in those dynamics. And people are not going to like that. They're going to get pissed because you're changing the game. And so it takes a certain type of person to walk this more unconventional path. And I know if you are here, you are definitely one of those people. You are someone who there's at least a spark, there's at least a little flicker in you that you're like, yeah, I want to do it different. I don't want to get to the end of my life and be like, fuck, I really didn't go for it. I really didn't let myself have what I really, really wanted to have. And sometimes that means the things that you want will be a little bit more unconventional. Maybe the type of relationships you want will be a little more unconventional. And that's okay. But it's really important to be in conversation and in connection and community with people who are also deep divers, who are also exploring what it means to live on those creative edges, what it means to be in the full range of who they are, where they're not cutting off parts in order to belong or exiling parts because, you know, Aunt Sally doesn't like that part of me, so I better not bring that out. Like, no, it's this permission slip to be who you truly are and live the life that you actually want to be living. And I think that's going to be the thread that binds all of the episodes that come through this iteration of the podcast, is that permission slip to follow the thread of your aliveness, to create your life on purpose, to create your relationships on purpose, to create them intentionally and in a way that is honest to the person that you are today. Knowing that who you are is going to evolve and the things you want may evolve and change with that. And to have the internal flexibility and the emotional fluidity to be able to flow where your expansion is taking you. And so we're going to have some real and raw conversations. We are going to dive deep. We're just going to have a great time, you know? And I've got a whole list of things that I already want to talk to y'all about. And if there are things that you want to hear me riff on, if you want to hear me talk about it, reach out. Let me know. Hit me up on social media. and slide into my DMs and be like, this is what I would love to hear you riff on. And I will pop it into the rotation one way, shape, or form. Because I want this to be a space that is really nourishing for you, that you walk away every episode and you're like, ooh, I've got something to chew on here. And I'm going to let that rumble around and let it open in my system. Because my work, this is something you should know about me if you're considering working with me. My work is slow. It's really slow. We don't rush. We don't push. We aren't on this trajectory of faster, better, harder, more. A lot of my work is about unwinding. It's about opening. It's about finding your true pace in life and in love. And really coding in the permission and the approval to design your life in a way that honors that true pace. And that can be really jarring in a world that is on fucking speed demon autopilot. You know, everyone's moving 1,000,000 miles a minute. And listen, I move fast. When I get the creative spirit in me, things can happen very, very quickly. But that happens because my system is not obstructed with all of this emotional and energetic debris that a lot of people are carrying around. And that is why my work is slow. Because to get into those spaces where we have historically been closed, you do not take a jackhammer to open those spots. We go slow. We create safety. We allow your system to open when it's true for it to open. Because when you follow that path, your transformation is sustainable. It's actual transformation. But when we go and jackhammer it, we're not actually opening, we're forcing, and it's often more mental than it is embodied. And if you've been here from the beginning of this particular podcast project, and we started this in 2020, you will see this thread of embodiment. It's very important to me. And every time I have the honor of working with someone, taking them on the journey back into their body so that they can actually take up residence in the home that they have, which is their human body, and find approval for themselves in that body, is such a gift. It's such a beautiful thing to experience and witness and be, a stand for in the world. And so my work being all about embodiment, we have to go slow. And we've got to be able to resensitize and feel in our system. Because part of creating life on the edges, part of being in the full range of who you came here to be, part of unconventional love is being able to inhabit your body, feel what's going on, understand what's going on there. And if we're keeping it mental, if we're trying to intellectualize everything, we're not actually feeling. And if we're not feeling, there is no transformation. And we've got all this stuck energy in our system. And again, we don't go in with force, because force does not create an allegiance between you and your body. In fact, when we go in with force or pressure or this need to get it done quick, the body trusts us even less. So ironically, it takes a lot longer to go the fast route. And when we slow it down and we go nice and slow and we find your natural set point, your natural pace, your path to transformation, your path to creating the life that you deeply desire and the relationships that you deeply desire becomes, well, it's a faster road to get there, ironically, by going slow. And, So if that is something that, when you hear it, your whole body and your nervous system is like, ah, yes, yes. I've been looking for that. That's what I want. Then my work is likely a really solid fit for you. And when we are going through these conversations, I will be sharing with you the things that I'm up to, the offerings that I have. And I want you to know that there's never any pressure for you to come through the gates of my paid work. Something that's really important to me is the energetic of service and giving. And I've had people, so many at this point, I've lost count, who reach out and say that they have completely transformed their lives just through my written work and my podcasts. And so I'm really big on coming here and serving so that you have something tangible that you can take away, something that you can chew on, something that you can digest and rumble around in your system. There will always be a handful of these moments in every episode so that wherever you're at, whether you're at the spot of like, hey, I'm just going to listen and I'm just here and I'm going to take this and I'm going to apply it in my life. I love that so much. And then if you're in a space where you're like, okay, I'm ready to come in and I'm ready to work on a deeper level, then that's great too. So just know that anytime I'm talking about my offerings, it's just from a place of wanting you to be informed, wanting you to know your options. And that's really important. It's a very important relational aspect of consent, is giving you all of the information so that you can powerfully choose. Because at the end of the day, it is about choice. And you do have the power to choose. You do have the sovereignty to choose. You know what the next move is. You know what's right and true for you. I trust your sovereignty. I trust your body. I trust your knowing. And so you're going to see that reflected in how I talk about things and when I talk about things. And there's just never any pressure to come through the gates. Because what I've realized, especially like these last 5 years in the online space, has been fucking wild. And we'll definitely have to talk about this in another episode. But there's still a lot of manipulation, covert manipulation that's happening. And I think it's fucking gross. I don't jive with it. And I've always had this perspective of, trusting people to make the decision that is right and true for them. And that's always worked really well for me. I've had my business, I've had many different iterations of my business, but I started in 2009. 2009. Damn. Okay. It's been a while. And the way that I was mentored was service first, generosity, and trusting that the people who are ready to come in, come in. And when you come in from a place of this actually feels expansive, this feels opening, this feels like an exhale to my nervous system, that's when you're actually going to get the benefit of the work. But if you come in because you feel pressured or coerced or pushed, or if you come in and it's outside of the scope of your financial integrity, that's not going to work either. Because again, you will not be available to the work because you'll be worried about the financial commitment. And I have a couple different options always for my work so that it's reasonable. Like there's been a lot of extractive pricing that has come out in these last 5 years of this boom of feminine entrepreneurship. And I'm just clear of who I'm here to serve, and I'm not interested in playing that game. So I like to keep most of my offerings, especially the group offerings, at a reasonable rate so that you're not taken out of range, but it's enough that you're in the game and you're showing up for yourself, because that's important too. So that's kind of the overview of where we're going to go in this podcast. And, I will definitely be talking about more of the experiences that I've been walking through this past year. There's been a lot of relational detonations that have happened, a lot of big tectonic shifts. And, there's two significant relationships of mine that have massively been disrupted, and, one of them ended, and then the other one is in the process of ending. And it's a challenging thing. But again, on the path of unconventional love, we're not necessarily stuck on this idea of forever. The idea behind an unconventional perspective on love, at least the frame that I teach from, is that we are in relationship with people until that relationship has served its spiritual significance, its emotional significance, and its relational significance. That not every relationship we have is going to be forever. And this is where the conventional track gets a little fucked up, because they will stay in relationships that are no longer true. They will stay in relationships that died a long time ago. And if you stay in a relationship that's dead, your life is going to reflect that. And I don't say that as a scare tactic. I just say it because it's just the truth. I have never seen someone who's in a dead relationship be vitally alive in the rest of their life. Because relationships, they inform, especially the romantic ones, they inform so much of what we do, who we think we are, what we think that we can achieve, what we think is possible. And when that core relationship is dysfunctional, when it's disconnected, when it's like two strangers just coexisting together, that impacts your self-esteem in every other area of your life. It is such a high cost. And when people are stuck on this belief that we have to stay together forever or we are colossal failures, they rip themselves off of having a life that's fully alive and relationships that meet them at that stage of their life. Because some relationships are meant for seasons. And some relationships will be with you for multiple seasons, maybe even forever. But having this perspective that is a little more fluid, again, it's going to bring up all of our fears. It's going to bring up all of our conditioning. It's going to bring up all of our ways in which we control and we want certainty, which really just comes down to feeling unsafe in ourselves and not really trusting ourselves to create what's next. And when we live with that paradigm, it boxes us in. And then we find these dysfunctional ways to kind of off-gas the energy. So this is why, in my perspective, a lot of affairs happen, because the relationship was either not true to begin with, got together for maybe the wrong reasons, or maybe it was true and then it stopped being true. It had kind of run its course, and then we get into this track of trying to force it. And once we're forcing something, that's no longer going to feel vital and alive. And there's a lot of built up energy that starts to swirl there. And we need to find ways to off gas it. And one of the ways that is very popular is by, following the thread of aliveness, going in the direction of where you actually want to be. And it can also come out in really relationally dysfunctional ways, like being passive aggressive or, being controlling or dismissive, like all of the things that actually like crumble a relationship to the ground will start popping up inside of a relationship that's run its course. And so inside of my relational containers, we really start to flush this out of like, what's the distinction here between when have we hit that true place of, oh, this is complete. We've come to a close here. Like, it's no longer true. It's no longer in service to either person to continue. And how can we leave with love? How can we leave in a way that dignifies the relationship that we've had, and it dignifies the love that actually exists between the two of us? And so my methodology, my work guides people in that direction, so that if it is true that the relationship is complete, it's done and it's completed in a way that has a lot of honor and integrity and dignity, and also will set you up to be open to what is next. And when relationships end in these really traumatic and dramatic ways, it doesn't necessarily set us up for what's next in our expansion. It can set us up to repeat old patterns. And because we didn't properly complete it. So again, this is very unconventional. Again, you will hear on the internet people telling you, and now that I'm presencing this, you're probably going to see it and you're going to feel it in the energetics. There's a lot of advice that's actually just convincing you to stay closed, to take the one-up position, the superior position, to dominate with your coldness, your closeness of like, I don't fucking care-ness. That's not relational. That's not love. And so we will be having many, many conversations about this, because I'm interested in you having relationships that really work for you, whether those are romantic, whether that's your social circle, whether that's your family. It doesn't matter to me, but what matters to me is that your relational world is thriving, so that you can thrive in other areas of your life. It becomes this beautiful ecosystem. When you have the healthy relational container, it feeds all of the other areas of your life. And like I said at the start, love will always ask you to become more of yourself. So when you're in the presence of a relationship that is aligned and there's true love there, you're going to find yourself with a partner or a friend, like this happens in friendships too, where they're encouraging you to become more of yourself, more of your gifts out in the world, to follow the thread of aliveness, because we're not threatened by where that journey is going to take us, because we have this unconventional template for love where we can check in with each other and recreate our agreements and really explore how do we keep our relationship vital in a way where we can both explore our expansion, but not at the cost of our relationship, in a way that serves our relationship. And then our relationship serves the becoming. It serves the expansion of both individuals. Like, that's the game we're playing here. And I'm so fucking stoked. And, I'll be sharing a little bit more of, the unravelings that I've been walking myself through this year. And, because there's just so much fucking gold in those. And also, where my creative journey has taken me. Because if I had even told myself, when I started in 2009, that I would have 2 podcasts, that I would be running 2 businesses, that I would be internationally songwriting with international artists of all these different genres, that I'd be writing poetry and be releasing a poetry book, I would not have believed me. And this is the coolest part about following the thread of what makes you come to life, is that you walk this very unconventional, but also truly awe-inspiring life. You create it and you follow the thread of, yeah, this is the next thing. This is what wants to be created through me. This is the next relationship that's for me. This is the type of relationship that's for me. This is the type of work that I want to do in the world. This is the type of business that I want to work for. Like, you follow that thread. These are the places that I want to travel. These are the experiences that I want to have. And you actually let yourself have them. When you look back, you're like, damn, I did good. And that's, I'm going to wrap here with this final piece of something that I've really been sitting with this year, because the relational endings that have happened. We're also in a year of the snake and a 9-year in numerology. So we have a lot of energy around endings, shedding old skin, shedding old identities, shedding. And it really brought me to this spot of thinking about death a lot. And not in like a super morbid way, but in a really realistic way. I'm 43, and for a lot of people that's like past midlife. Not for me though, because I'm planning on living to 100. And when we get to these junctures, they can be very sobering, because we're like, shit, what if I don't actually have as much time left as I think? What if like this next year of my life is the last year of my life? And I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and that frame in particular, because there's been so much death and rebirth. And I'm like, dang, if this was my last year, how would I spend it? What would I do different? What wouldn't matter? What would I let go of? What would I prioritize? Who would I prioritize? How would I create my last year to be one that I could confidently sign my name to at the end? And as I sat with that and I let it kind of rumble, I was brought kind of face to face with this reality that I had been in a bit of a holding pattern, this comfort zone holding pattern. And there's many reasons for that. Maybe we'll go into that in the next episode. But ultimately, like, the series of unfortunate events from the pandemic onward really like threw me into this more survival, safety, almost forgetting the magic of who I am. And then when you forget, you are immediately thrust into a journey of remembrance. And so that's largely what these last couple of years have been, is that journey of remembrance and reclamation. And when I kind of had this sobering realization of like, shit, like I used to really be out there and like living out loud and like following the thread of what brings me to life and fucking the rules and making my own. And I kind of pumped the internal brakes on that. Not entirely, but I can feel the distinct difference. And when I sat with, if I were to go on the same trajectory that I've been going on, and it was my last year alive, would I get to the end and feel good about that? And be proud of how I lived my last year? And the answer was no. That's a very sobering thing to say, but that's the truth. And so I designed this experiment for myself for 2026, because we're going into a 1 year. It's going to be ruled by the fire horse. So talk about like forward, fiery, momentum, magic, movement. And I'm like, what if I lived the entire year as if it was my last year alive. And I let myself go where I wanted to go, have what I want to have, say what I need to say, experience what I need to experience, create what I'm here to create. And like really go for it. Not play it safe, but like really fucking go for it. And as soon as I made that declaration, no joke, my longtime mentor reached out and she was like, I've been watching you. And I'm really impressed with your levels of devotion, the embodiment of your work, and the integrity of your work. And I would like you to come speak on my stage live to start off 2026. No joke. This is January. And so because I'd made this commitment of following the thread of the yes, following the thread of what brings me to life, I was so honored that she asked me. And there was like this very deep and raw moment where as soon as she asked me, I just burst into tears and I didn't stop crying. I think it was a couple hours. Like it was a big release. Because it made everything that I had been through in these last 5 years, and especially this last year, it all kind of clicked it into place. It made sense. I'm like, yeah, I have been on a fucking journey of being refined again and again and again, and like finding this recalibration of what is the true expression of my life? What is it that I actually want for myself in my life? Who do I really want to be? At the end of my days, what is the impact that I want to leave on the world? How do I want to leave other people? And so I designed this experiment called The Last Year. And I was just going to do it for myself. I had no intention of enrolling anyone else into this experiment. But as things go, with me and my relationship to source, the more I sat with it and the more it was creating through me, it was very clear that it wasn't just for me. And I wanted it to be, a very accessible access point for people who are in that spot of, okay, let's fuck around and find out. Let's actually live our life this entire year as though it is the last year. It's kind of like, in all of those movies of reclamation where you kind of leave the conventional path and you start making moves that are actually true to your heart and your soul. And it takes you on this wild adventure, or it takes the character at least. You are the character in this story. You are the character in your story. And a large portion of this experiment is going to be writing yourself alive. There's going to be writing classes. There's going to be embodiment classes. And there's going to be obviously a structure to the experiment so that you can stay in the pocket. Because the thing that matters the most when you make a commitment like this is having accountability. Even this episode today, the reason that it's here today is because of accountability. Me with one of my truest soul friends who I just love so deeply, Rainier Wild. Him and I were having a conversation. He's like, okay, so when's the podcast dropping? And I was like, this is one of those moments, again, of like being in that frequency of yes, being in the frequency of the expansion. And I made a commitment to him. I was like, you know what? I'm doing it this week. And I'm going to go home and I'm going to record the podcast tonight. And that's what I did. And having that degree of accountability, but also momentum with people who are playing the same game is so important. And so I have opened up the experiment for anyone. And I'm so excited about it because all of my containers are just for women, but this one is open to everybody. And we're gonna roll as a crew, and we're gonna get on our fire horses, and we are going to gallop into 2026, creating, expanding, and we will have these touch points throughout the month. I will give you access to my writing class, which is we're literally scripting and writing ourselves alive. And I also have some really cool practices that we're going to be weaving in, so that if it was actually our last year, this is not just about like grabbing your bucket list and like traveling the world. If that's your jam, that's your jam. But this is actually more about tuning in to the truest expression of what wants to be created through you and letting yourself follow that. And if it was your last year, there's probably some cleanup that you would do. There are probably some amends that you would make. There's probably some, open-hearted shares of love, things that you've kept kind of guarded and hidden, that you would share, that you would express. So this is very much about expression, letting all of that love that lives inside of you exist outside of you. Stop being stingy with it, but actually have a container that holds you capable to going and having the conversations that really matter, to having the experiences that really matter to you, to creating the things that really matter to you. And so that you can look back at the end of 2026 and you're like, holy fuck, look what I did. And if it was your last year, you could confidently sign your name to it. So if that feels like a calling and you feel the expansion for that, you want to come in and play, I will put the link in the show notes. And it's $88 a month, or there's an option to pay in full. I forget what I priced that at, but it's there too. So very, very accessible. And we're going to have the writing class. You get access to my embodiment session every month. And we're also going to have a live call with everybody where we're celebrating wins. We are actually presencing the momentum and the actions that you were taking and really locking in this energetic of praise. We are not praised enough. This is why people are so hungry for validation, is because they're not getting it. And validation is a core relational nutrient. Just most people don't know how to go about getting that nutrient met in a way that actually feeds them. And so I'm going to give you that template. I'm going to show you how it is done, and you are going to get to participate in that if you want to come and play in this experiment. So I will put all of the information in the show notes for you. It's simple. Like we are not overcomplicating it. This is not about like going and studying and doing a fuck ton of work and like heavy lifting. Like this is about living. Really, really living. As cheesy as it sounds, like living as though you're dying. Because technically you are. Technically I am. We all are. And when we follow the thread of what brings us to life and what makes us feel truly alive, that is where all the magic lives. And I want that for you. I want that for me. So if you want to come play, I'd love to have you. And we obviously will start in January, but I will be doing a class over the holidays to kind of kick us off. And I'll be throwing in some little teachings here and there throughout the year that'll support in the process and with the challenge and with the experiment. And I also have a couple other offers that I'll talk to y'all about another day. But for now, sit with that. And if it feels true, I'd love to have you join me. And if you're just going to kick it here for the podcast, I love that. And if you aren't already subscribed, I would love if you subscribe to the podcast and gave it a 5-star rating, because that really helps these conversations get pushed out into the world for other people to find them. And if something really resonated with you today that you know someone in your life would really benefit from hearing as well, please share this episode with them. Be part of their transformation. And I will be back next week with another episode. I think I'm going to aim for 2 to 3 episodes a month. Maybe we'll get 4. I don't know. We'll see. This is going to be a work in progress, a creation in progress. We'll see where we land. But I have a lot of things that I want to talk to you about, so we might end up having a weekly episode. We'll see. I love you all. Thank you for being here, for tuning in, for staying with me right to the end. I appreciate you so deeply, and here's to keeping it real and raw. We'll talk to you soon, friends. Bye.